Every parents' night, I think they held a book fair, and I think you could get 1 or 2 books, and I think that's where this came from. It is a very apt title for tonight. I don't remember this as well as I remembered The Haunting of Hiram or The Chaos Clock. Winterbringers was startlingly well remembered, all things considered, but this one was mostly gone. I knew it was set in a manor house, and I knew that I think there was a boy and a girl, but whether it was a haunting or a mystery, most of it is gone. And so this is one of the ones that I'm most intrigued by. I really love that first chapter of Chill. It is deeply atmospheric. Samuel all alone in this house. This manor house. The outside world impassable with the snow. And unfamiliar. He's exploring. He hasn't been everywhere yet. The chapter title being like The Weeping Woman, and just this sense of maybe being glad that the family are gone and that he's on his own, but also just it's quiet and it's strange and unfamiliar, and maybe this ghost wants something with him specifically, and I just think it's an excellent first chapter. I hope the rest of it is evocative and okay, so sensual is definitely not the right word, but you know what I mean. I think it was in another of these videos that I said that these books are all Scottish, which makes sense. They were given out through Scottish schools, so promoting Scottish authors seems like a really smart move. But I don't know why. I assumed it was Welsh. I think because the manor house, I think they called it a chateau actually, is called the Nad. And to me that didn't read as like Gaelic at all. Though I will profess to not being familiar with Welsh. But also like the fact that it opens talking about the moors, that feels very north of England. And like the amount of snow, if it makes me think of anywhere, it really makes me think of the Highlands. So I think all of that fits with like the Gothic atmosphere, because we know how much the Gothic likes to displace. That said, it could also be like an English thing, because there's, again, like the class dynamics is very Gothic. And to that point, I will also say I don't think any of the other Scottish books went quite this far with it. The keepers are very, like, just not just in the Scots that they're speaking, but just in like the way that they speak. And it's really fun to see. So am I aware that including 18th century writing that is accurate to the period in a book that is intended for like primary school children, not even the older ones, but like midway through the threes and the fours, is bonkers and unfair. Yes. Am I still a little annoyed? Also, yes. I do want to note, however, that I do appreciate the layerings of the hauntings that this perhaps girl, perhaps a woman, heard voices herself, that the Morton children, Fiona as the youngest is not really as affected in the sense that she was too young to really remember her dad, but there is no escaping it. This house is kind of like a tomb in many ways, for many people, I guess. I'm almost halfway through, and at the moment, unfortunately, Charles is the most intriguing character. He certainly has a lot going on, and it's making him behave in ways that are like, oh boy. But because of that, he is also the most isolated character, and while I do really enjoy Samuel and Fiona's investigations, his isolation is the more intriguing because he is not going to go and ask for help, even when he wants to. And I'm really fascinated by what it is about him. Outside of the book itself, I think what's standing out to me is that I don't remember it. I kept the book, and I do think I remember enjoying it. But it just... the overwhelming feeling that I'm getting this time is picking up and thinking, oh, I've read for so long and I've made so little progress. And it shouldn't feel like that. It shouldn't feel like, it's not quite like a slog, but not far away from one either. And I think the fact that reading it isn't jogging my memory is also saying something. Mostly it's making me miss the winters of my childhood. I like drear weather, I like rain, but it's been a long time since we've really had snow. And so long since we've had a whiteout. And I miss it so much. So I am about 47 pages from the end now, and I am enjoying it more. I think the history is interesting when it's being engaged with rather than being emulated like in the letters. So like when they're looking up the battle, when they are getting little like visions of the past and like the hauntings. And I am kind of enjoying how sneaky they are, like breaking into Denad, or you know, like snooping through things. I think like that part of it is fun, but I also think that is indicative of one of my problems with it, and that it is Samuel and Fiona against the world, and everyone else is there's a lot of friction and a lot of tension and a lot of people just like getting on at each other, and I think I'm not going to say it does nothing for an interesting atmosphere, but it is just like at this part of my life, I'm very much like, please just grow up. Okay, so I say all that and then I get to like the one really funny moment in the book. I have a lot better an opinion of it now that I've finished. I really like I like the way it's dealing with history a lot more. But the letters still kind of get to me a little bit because listen, there were plenty of women through history who chafed against the constraints of their time. It's just the way that it's written, often in like children's books and like mainstream media, is just very like, she is effectively a, like 21st century girl with all that entails, living in, whatever era it's supposed to be, and it just doesn't feel real to the time. And that really does a disservice to actual women and girls of the time, in my opinion. And I really found that in, like, when she was talking about being able to, like, learn to read and write. Because my mind immediately went to, well, you are a lady. And when you grow up, you're going to get married. And then you're also going to be, like, the lady of the house. So you're going to be dealing with, like, finances and, like, trade, and you're going to be doing politics because, the neighbours, other like noble families, you're the one who are going to be like organising the balls and da 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 da. The reading, being able to read and write should not be like a thing in the way that it's written. And then towards the end of the book, it's like, oh, we found these like basically groceries, and of course it was written by the mom because she was like the lady with the house. And I'm just like, so you yourself acknowledge that this is not an odd thing for a girl in her position to learn. So why did you... No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That said, I do really like towards the end when everything about Catherine's story has come out and Samuel is walking away and his thoughts turn to her mum, Lady Cecilia, which is really nice because they talk so much about like Catherine's voice being like smothered, and so the fact that there is sympathy for her mother and acknowledgement that her voice also was kind of silenced is really sweet. Yeah, I do think it wrapped up a little quickly though, in the sense of like all of the children ended up going to the gravesite, and it's like, well, Seb had no idea that any of this was going on, so how did you tell him? This feels like a lot to spring on the boy. But no, yeah, I do like it a lot more. I am a little bit surprised because I have always been under the impression that this is a standalone, but reading the end, it really seems like there is a sequel. And while I think it would be funny, kind of assholeish, if it ended that way, like setting up a sequel and then there was none, it has given me a lot to think about. I kind of want to read a sequel if there is one, not necessarily out of like genuine want, but more to satisfy curiosity. But yeah, I definitely would if there is one. Also, I will say I really love a book that ends with a bibliography. And this isn't really that, but I do appreciate that there is further reading I could do, and just like as credit to research that the author did. I kind of miss when books ended with like adverts for other books. It was bad for me, but it it was good too. But it is also like very much of the era that it was written in a way that I find really fascinating, because nowadays, even in like the 2010s, it was about like kids going out and having the adventure. Whereas in these ones, like in Winterbringers as well, which is, I did vlog. I don't think I liked it very much. Yeah, Winterbringers. There are like, it switches between like Samuel's perspective and Fiona's, but also to the parents and to like the housekeepers, and they weren't very useful in many ways, but the fact that they are included as like perspective characters, I think that's a really interesting like hallmark. I thought I'd finished with this, but I thought, if the past is repeating itself enough to change Charles' entire personality, why was Sebastian written like that? Why is he basically a non-entity? If two brothers tormented Catherine and two brothers looked up Fiona, why does Sebastian not matter?